We are back for another episode of Wine and Spirits. I am Jionni Olamide, your spiritual plug, and I am one of your hosts for tonight.
And I am Maya Johnson. I'm your cousin. So I'm everybody's cousin. And we finna get it popping.
Period. So this week we are talking about birthing while black and why it's still considered a revolutionary act. So tonight we talking truth and we serving that straight up no epidural.
Period.
So
All
what's the
right. So,
wine?
huh?
What's the wine?
Oh, so the one. So right now is the fact stand. Black women are 3 times more likely to die from childbirth related causes, and not only that, it's an issue for black babies as well because black babies are dying at over twice the rate of white babies in America, and that's not biology; it's bias. um, from inadequate prenatal care to structural racism. Basically, the system is failing the youngest before they even get a full chance at life. They barely in the world good, and the system is already feasting on them. Another quick fact, according to the CDC, back in like 2023, the infant mortality rate for black babies is 10.6 deaths per 1,000 live births, compared to 4.4 per 1,000 for white babies. That means that black infants are more than twice as likely to die before age 1. And that's a gap that's barely budged in the last 40 years.
Mm.
Yeah. So this didn't come out of nowhere, right? Everything traces back to slavery. I know people don't like us talking about it, but hey, it is what it is. So during slavery, enslaved black women were basically forced to give birth without like any medical care and under like the most horrendous, heinous conditions, right? Um, and not only that, they were often used as test subjects, right? And subjected to like gynecological experiments without anesthesia. And that legacy of dehumanization basically shaped a medical system in America that still that undertreats black pain and ignores black voices. And even after emancipation, Jim Crow era hospitals were trash. They denied care to black mothers, and today racial bias still continues to show up in how doctors dismiss symptoms, delay treatment, and assume black patients are stronger or exaggerating their pain. So, short story. I know I'm talking a lot, but I actually came across a lady because I used to be a medic, right? I used to be a combat medic. And I was seeing somebody, she was a military spouse, and she went to nursing school. And she literally came to me crying at her point because she had to wrap up some shots or whatever in order to complete medical school. And so, I mean, not medical school, but nursing school. And she was crying to me because she had learned that there were people who thought black people couldn't feel pain. And this is a redhead white woman. She was so sweet, but she had never, because like in her mind everybody experiences pain. What do you mean? And so apparently during one of the classes, the one of the nursing instructors actually asked the class how many people believed that either black people couldn't feel pain or they felt less pain than white people. And she said that people actually raised their hands, and this was 2020, you know what I'm saying? And she was like, and it blew her mind, and she was just so upset. Like, she's like, I can only imagine the type of medical care that people are getting, and how many instructors aren't asking the question and checking the bias before you get down your pathway to nursing or to medical school or whatever.
Having a patient in front of you.
Facts.
Well, when you bring up slavery, it absolutely resonates. What I'm thinking about is and it may have been a movie, it may have been a book,
Mm-hmm.
but they said that they used to have slave masters who, when they felt sick, would make their slaves lay at their feet, and they would basically stand on them, if you would, because the
Mm-hmm.
slaves were supposed to be able to absorb their pain.
Absorb.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
and because they couldn't feel any, right?
Yeah.
Then it essentially became some form of a job for some of them. Um, whether it actually worked or not, the power of belief and suggestion take you a long way. But just the fact that there are records that said that they used people in that manner, right? But also the evidence was based on how much toll the black body could take in the midst of beatings and
Yeah. Yeah.
unfair or really conditions that we know you are death dealing,
Yeah,
right?
for sure, for sure.
And so if y'all can do all of that, you can get your ass whooped. You can still be productive, right? Um, yeah,
That shit
more
sad.
power to you. But also there's this other thing too, right? About black folk not being fully human that I think is also connected to that,
Oh, for
right?
sure. And it was backed up by eugenics. And not to get controversial, right? I literally had a back and forth recently because now it's back trending because somebody on TikTok, it's two people who are they are disabled. I prefer the term differently abled, but I can't remember, they have some type of disease of the spine or whatever the case may be, and they're both wheelchair bound, and they didn't reach the full height or whatever the case may be, and they recently either had a baby or one is pregnant, and it sparked this whole debate online, and I had to explain to some people I know, because they're saying, okay, well, why would you subject a child to a lifetime of disease and all this other stuff, right? And I told them that is a slippery slope into eugenics when you're deciding who can and cannot reproduce. Because essentially, like, and I like from a person in a relatively healthy body, because I am a disabled vet, right? But in a relatively healthy body, you know what I'm saying? I don't know what certain things are like, but when you look at people who are, I promise I got a point. But when you look at people who are disabled and they choose to reproduce, this is the only life they've known, right? So essentially what you're saying is that to be born like them is worse than just not being here. You know what I'm saying? So I'm like, you have to be careful with that rhetoric, because that is, whether or not we want to admit it, because people are like, oh, telling broke people they shouldn't have kids, or disabled people they shouldn't have kids, is not that it is though. Because keep in mind that same rhetoric unfortunately was used by our oppressors to either try to, like, there was a whole time in history where they were conducting experiments attempting to bleach black skin to basically breathe the negro out of you. If you look at places like Brazil, right, where they want to lighten and whiten the race and things like that. So I'm like, you have to be careful of like the rhetoric that you espouse, because as we've seen with everything else, the people who feel the brunt of it the most are going to be us. It's going to somehow come back to us. And so that dehumanization will find a way to sneak itself in, because being black in America puts you at a disadvantage, right? I'm talking about, we're talking about statistics when it comes to infant mortality rates. You can't even get in the world good. Some of us don't. And so if we're going by that same logic, then being black itself can be seen as a disability or a handicap in America, because being born black in a black body makes life immediately more difficult for you. And so we have to be mindful of the rhetoric that we espouse. You know what I'm saying?
Yep,
Because people will find a way to use it on us.
that's it. And as you were talking, it made me start thinking about the infamous Margaret Sanger and the concept of what. For those of you who don't know, she dedicated her life to um, Ooh, she had a lot to do with the eugenics movement and the founding of Planned Parenthood. I'm going to say that. And there is a direct correlation between the two, all the way to the neighborhoods that they're located in, which is
Oh,
what I'm
oh,
beginning to think about as you were talking.
oh, let me add something. Let me add something, right? Because I know a little something about Margaret Sanger. And a lot of people are not gonna want to hear this either. Two things. Yes, Margaret Sanger was trash. Don't get me wrong. She was racist, she was trash. She's not responsible for eugenics, but she was one of those people who kind of perpetuated some of the rhetoric, right? Just to give a little bit of background, Margaret Sanger came from like a really, really large family. Her father was like a pharmacist or something like that, and he traveled for work. So he would come home, basically get her mother pregnant, and now he's gone. So now, because she's one of the older siblings, her mom is constantly having all these babies, and she was stuck taking care of them. Did she overcorrect? Probably. Probably, but in her mind, women needed reproductive control because most of the labor, even for white women, unfortunately, was still left on the mothers and whatever children that they had. So she spent most of her life being a parent to her younger siblings. And that's when she decided she was going to champion birth control. And then her husband eventually joined the cause as well. And I think both of them actually did jail time for promoting birth control. Now, once again, she overcorrected, and that's why I was saying what I said earlier, like, about being black in America can be seen a certain type of way too. And so that kind of fed into that rhetoric, and some of your favorites supported her, right? W.E.B. Du Bois actually showed up at some of her gatherings because he got that talented 10th shit, right? That's eugenics. Talented 10th is eugenics. MLK also supported her. And so just to put a little historical spin on it, because at the end of the day, unfortunately, a lot of your faves still agree that if you do not have certain socioeconomic standing and you didn't unfortunately acquiesce, or you didn't necessarily assimilate to a degree, they felt like you didn't deserve to be here. So we have to also be critical of some of our heroes because they wasn't right either. Anyway, though, so back to Planned Parenthood. Let's talk about
Absolutely. And also, it's important to talk about the history, because if you are not aware, you will not make the correlation between Planned Parenthood as we see and know it today and the
for
way
sure,
that it was originally incepted,
for
right?
sure.
I think we're at that place now because they've spent it so far around women's choice, which
Yeah.
I absolutely agree with.
That's
But
how it started, but that ain't been where it's been since like that first clinic opened up. Like that's been done. That's been
right,
done. Yeah,
yeah,
that's
and
been done.
so for me, it's being able to hold those two in tandem and be
Hmm.
able to juxtapose what it is, right? Because
Yeah, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. It don't matter what she intended, right?
that's it.
It's how it ended up.
Yeah, I'm about to say, and the other side of that, I was about to say, we didn't went over all the way into the into the eugenic side of it.
Yeah,
But
but it's
the other thing
important.
I'm thinking about around um the women who give birth and the effects of what happens to them is also the care that women have access to now in relationship to these views and all these things, right? How many women
Yep.
have near death experiences? How many women end up being directed to a form of care that they might not even need, right? Because the system benefits from it. Um, and what other ways does the system neglect, underdiagnose, manifest institutional
Hmm.
racism through OBGYN care? Like there's
Definitely.
a list of things uh, in relationship to this topic that we get to go in on tonight. The question is, woo, sip or spit is gonna be real good.
Silver Smith's gonna be good, but we talked about the results, right? So look, I'm gonna say something to my ladies real quick. Protect your womb. Um, protect your womb. This ain't. I'm not finna go on no weird ass choose better rhetoric. Protect your womb though, because like I said, we gave y'all these stats about how women are more likely to die in childbirth. When you're choosing to have a baby for someone, with someone, however you want to,
View
when
that.
however you want to word it, right? When you're choosing to be a mom and to bring a life into the world, understanding that you are literally putting your life at risk, and in these men, right? Y'all have to respect what that actually means and what that looks like. We arguing about child support when somebody literally put their entire life on the line, because we're looking at what, just even with the baby itself, 10.6 deaths per 1,000. Then on top of that, you know what I'm saying, black women 3 times more likely to die from childbirth related issues. You know what I'm saying? I know somebody who, you know what I'm saying, shortly after giving birth didn't make it. You know what I'm saying? So let's not take that shit for granted. Child
Absolutely.
support is the worst thing that could, that's the least of your issues when it comes to all the things that could go wrong with having a child. You know what I'm saying? And so you have to respect what a woman is actually putting on the line by doing that. And women got to respect that too. Put some respect on your womb. I say that to say, Even celebrities have kind of been open about their struggles or their issues when it came to childbirth. Serena Williams and Beyonce both had near death experiences, right?
Mm.
And that's important. And these are people with money and resources that the average woman does not have, and it still came for them because this system don't let nobody ever tell you that all of our problems really boil down to classism. Understand that race and class are tied together, and America has a caste system. And so it's, call it what it is, protect yourself, understand that money and that fame did not save them in that situation, because at the end of the day, systemic neglect, underdiagnosis, and fucking institutional racism still exists within OB/GYN care. Straight up. But you ready for the sipper spit?
Man, I am, because I it's an ugly reality. But honestly, the other thing that it makes me think about are the centuries that we had women in the field that were still figuring it out outside
Mm-hmm.
of what was available to us. Your doulas, your midwives, your women and men who, you know, help give birth throughout
Yeah.
all of these different seasons, right? Even back in slavery,
Yeah.
right? Like they they had their own systems of ways to be able to care for women, knowing that master might not approve of this, right? But I know how
Right.
to forage. I know what herbs I need to be looking for. I know
Mm-hmm.
what other holistic methods can still help ease this process for you, you know.
Right. Right.
And so I don't know. Let's can we sip on doulas and midwives and an alternative, and then possibly spit on the system itself?
Yeah. Honestly, yeah, I'm with it. So yeah, sip on the doulas, and the ladies and the gentlemen putting in work. Definitely spit on the fucking system. So
Definitely, I'm with that. Um, but I'm with it because I feel like they saving lives, right? They not there for the headlines, and so often they don't even get recognition. I know
mhm.
here in Arkansas we have a a, a network called the Jionni Maternity Network, and
Okay.
essentially it is a group of doulas, midwives that have put together an education system in order to be able to train other women on being able to learn the techniques in order to expand what kind of care is alternative care is available.
Okay.
But the truth about it is the role of doulas and midwives has always indicated that when their support is present, it's a benefit to the mother. Whether
Oh, for
she gonna
sure.
do a C-section, if she's having premature delivery, shorter labor durations, but also the emotional support in the process. Right? You was talking
Mhm.
earlier about put some respect on the womb. And one of the things that I've witnessed is that brothers who are around for the pregnancy process, right, who
Mhm.
are a witness to that whole 9 months and all the changes that that woman's body goes through and the sacrifices that she makes in order to come to term, right, have a higher
Mhm.
sensitivity level than those who are absent,
For
right?
sure.
And so lowering stress levels comes with all different forms of support, but doulas and midwives are able to offer that in the event that you have to do it by yourself, right? And so the mental health piece of that, women who had care had 57.5% lower odds of having postpartum depression and anxiety.
Okay.
And we don't even talk about postpartum.
Not
Um,
like we should anyway.
we should not. I've seen so many women who have exhibited symptoms, and folk will be like, I don't know why she this and why she that. She just angry. She don't. Well, hold on,
Yeah.
because there might be some other things that are happening in her body that you not
That you're
even
not
giving
aware of.
it's
Yeah.
the possibility of, right? And a lot of times it is postpartum. Um,
Absolutely.
but care is effective. And being able to acknowledge when you need care and being open to different types of care. Our first thought sometimes is, oh, I need to go to the doctor or the urgent care or the
Yeah.
or the or the ER. And sometimes it's like, maybe you need to have somebody in your network that you can call before you go into one of those
Right.
facilities, into
Mhm.
that system, right? And
For
so
sure.
expanding midwife led care has led to 20% of pregnancy, or could lead to 20% of pregnancies over the next decade, actually saving money, right?
Yeah.
Because the the healthcare system that we got, y'all, it's high. I don't know if y'all done been in a hospital and got a bill and ever looked at it.
Yeah.
How many
Yeah.
thousands of dollars is on there, right? And
Yeah.
you be looking like, damn, why Advil $400 in here? Which I could have brought my own Advil in this motherfucker.
Period. I'd have
What
bought
y'all
that shit from the
charging?
hell
You
fucking
know,
me. I could have stopped at Walgreens on the way here.
you know what I'm
What are
saying?
you doing?
And so, save yourself some funds on the long end simply by being proactive and making sure that you create access
Mm-hmm.
to the folk who can be a resource and be a support in the event that you are considering having children. I know for myself, and that's why I said, who's been out here studying the networks and figuring out what's
Yeah.
available out here? But just like we got one in Arkansas, and Arkansas is a small state, y'all. Wherever you are, I would encourage you, see who's out there, right?
For sure.
Where are your alternative support systems, your holistic doctors, your doulas, your midwives, because
Yeah.
they can definitely be a big help.
Oh, for sure, for sure. But that requires us to start having these conversations and bringing it more so into the cultural consciousness, right? You talking about it amongst friends. We don't talk about things like family planning enough. We want to talk about relationships. We want to talk about celebrity gossip, and we want to talk about baby mamas, but we don't want to talk about actual family planning. So we have to start having these conversations, doing the work, learning, reading, doing whatever. So like just pop culture stuff, right? So like you got the Aftershock documentary, and then you got influencers like Erica Chidi. And Erica Chidi is a doula, a lactation consultant, and she's also a chef. And so she's the CEO of Loom, which provides education, services, and community to people who are thinking about having kids, right? Reproductively curious, to people who are pregnant, and also parenting, right? So
Mm.
that's a resource. And then, like I said, the documentary Aftershock. So tell us a little bit about the documentary real quick so people can know.
So Aftershock came out in 2022. It's still relatively new, but basically it goes through the maternal health crisis in the U.S. and it talks about tragic situations, but also preventable deaths. And it talks specifically about these two women, Amber and I can't think of the other one's name.
Uh,
But
no, 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 no. Yeah,
they both
Shimoni.
died from childbirth.
Shimoni. Yeah,
Okay,
Shimoni Gibson.
okay, that's it. Okay.
Or
And ultimately
Sherman.
the film talks about what their families had to go through, how people in the community were able to advocate for them,
Mm-hmm.
and what type of changes need to happen in the system in order for change to be sustained. And so a few things that it highlighted was basically how the system had failed them.
Right.
um, the neglect of the system, not believing women on the first time when they tell you, this don't seem right, or I
Mm-hmm.
need another form of care. And that as a contributor to some of the high mortality rates that we have. But also you get to hear these women's stories.
Yeah.
And so it makes the statistics that we're talking about human. And I say the documentary is good, but I also dare say that we all know somebody who's been through some version of this, right?
Yep.
Maybe some that did not necessarily lose their lives. I think about my homegirl Beverly Howard. Beverly was one of my high school classmates. She
Mm-hmm.
passed away at 21 years old. She had her fourth child. The baby survived. She did not.
Yeah.
But she from the hood where I'm from, right? Just
Mm-hmm.
know we didn't necessarily get taught, right, on how to
Mm-hmm.
navigate these things, especially when you start having kids at a young age. Because she had her first baby when we were still in school,
Yeah. Yeah.
and so I dare say that while the documentary humanizes all that we talking about, think about who you know, right?
Yeah.
The real stories, right? And talk to folk about their experience, because it's tragic for a lot of folk to figure out how to navigate
Absolutely.
that, especially if you
Absolutely.
lose somebody. But even if for women who end up surviving, a lot of times women survive and their children do not, right? And so the
Absolutely.
grief of that experience, but it also has a call to action, because aftershock basically lets you know, like, there are things that all of us can be doing,
Yeah.
right? So writing to your policymakers, working with activists in your community, finding your birth workers, and talking to them and getting to know what their needs are so that you can be an advocate for them, are all things that come out of there, right? So if this is something that you actually care about and you want to learn more about, I would definitely say check it out. Um, don't know
Okay.
where it's currently located. Maybe Netflix. Let me look that up.
Yeah, find that. So definitely so we can give people more information. But yeah, you should check that out, and we should be having more of these conversations. Because I'm sure you do know somebody. I had my own issues with my pregnancy. And so I definitely think this is a issue that doesn't get enough attention, because I don't think a lot of people still recognize or realize how difficult it is and how much of a problem that this still is. And it's just even dealing with the medical system in general as a black woman is rough. You know what I'm saying? I've had to advocate for myself on numerous occasions, but I also had a support system, and I'm of the age, I got friends that's MDs now, so I got people I can call, reach out to my network. So just be
So
mindful.
Hulu.
Hulu. All right. So boom, Aftershock, the documentary on Hulu. So what's the verdict? What's the verdict, homie? What's the verdict? Sip or spit?
It's mixed.
Okay.
I think we gotta sip. We gotta sip to the self determination, and we gotta sip to the alternatives, and we gotta spit on the system, spit on the medical neglect, and spit on the history that has really led us to this point, right?
Okay.
Um, and this is why we say self care is a revolutionary act in all shapes, forms, and fashions, including when you get ready to have your babies. Okay,
Period.
so
Period.
yeah,
Period.
we're
So
gonna sip on those good
yeah.
things, and the rest,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay. All right, y'all. So now we moving on to our teachable toast. So I know you have the SisterSong Black Mamas Matter Alliance. Um, two organizations. I want you to talk more about those particular organizations. Since I'm not the organizer, I'm just a person. Like, I'm the queen of useless information type time. Like,
No,
I got that, but I could probably rattle off some stats, and I probably know some random information, just like the situation with Margaret Saint. I like to read, but I definitely need to be I need to get in the field more myself if we keeping it a buck. So let's talk about these organizations.
so I believe in actual resources, right? Like
Mhm.
it's one thing to be able to talk about all these things, but when we leave, who can I call? What website can I look up? Like where can I actually go? And so Sister Song and the Black Mamas Matter Alliance are two pivotal organizations that basically lead the way in reproductive justice and black maternal health.
Mm.
So Sister Song, they're probably about 25, 30 years old.
Okay.
And they basically started as a collective of organizations that were led by BIPOC women, BIPOC being Black, Indigenous, people of color, right? So that's everything from African Americans to Africans, Arabs, Middle Eastern,
Yeah. Everybody.
Asian Pacific Islanders.
Everybody and their mama now.
Come on, and they formed an alliance, if you will, across 16 different organizations.
Okay.
And the goal was to be able to amplify the voices of women who were affected, right? Of no matter what your color was. And so they have been working to reframe or to expand the framework of what reproductive justice means. Not only for the right to have children, but also for the right to parent in safe and healthy environments, right? For
For sure.
parents to be able to choose what that looks like for themselves, right? And not be determined by the state. And so they partner with the Center for Reproductive Justice and several reproductive centers of reproductive health. So the Latina Center for Reproductive Health, the African American, like the coalition, if you will. And so if that's something that is important for you to learn more
Mhm.
about, to participate again, like I said, in advocacy, specifically around framework, policy, those kind of things, Sister Song is definitely one that you want to get involved with. Now, the Black Mamas Matter Alliance is very similar, but they are more of the actual professionals that work in the
Okay.
community for reproductive health, right? So if you're looking for a network of like who can I call, right? I don't want to call and talk to my politicians and advocate and those kind of things. I actually want to know, where are my alternatives at?
Yeah.
That's what the Black Mamas Matter Alliance is for. And so their mission is to center the Black mama and birthing people, to advocate, to drive research, build power, and shift culture for Black maternal health, rights, and justice. And so they're amplifying the work of the folk who are in community actually providing these services. And so if you need support or you are looking to figure out where that is in your community, I would encourage you to check out their website.
For sure.
And they also do a Black Maternal Health Week every April. So we missed it this year.
Yeah.
And it was the 11th through the 15th. But next year, we definitely be observant again to be able to amplify and raise awareness around what's going on. Because like I said, we don't talk about it, but we all know somebody.
For sure. And if anybody knows anything, or if they're like involved in the Black Maternal Health Week for next year, please reach out to us.
Yes.
So you can either come be on the pod, or we can figure something out, do an event together, anything, right? Just to get in the field. And I do want to provide some resources, right? So if you have not read Medical Apartheid by Harriet A. Washington, you should do it asaptually, right? It is a tough read and it is very hard to get through. However, it's very, very important when it comes to like the history of medical practices in America for all Black folk, right? Slavery to present day. Not only that, she also wrote a book called A Terrible Thing to Waste about environmental racism. So that only compiles that stuff, you know what I'm saying, from the Medical Apartheid book. And we're talking about things like Flint, Michigan. We're talking about even
Tennessee.
It's a
Where Elon Musk is
Elon Musk. It's a lot going on, but she talks about like how that's been a thing, and unfortunately it's affecting the development of Black children, and imagine what that does to pregnant mothers, right? In not being able to have those safe and healthy environments in order to raise babies in. Not only that, you also have Black fatigue. And look, I know people have been talking about Black fatigue on the internet for like the past couple of weeks. All on TikTok, y'all are using it incorrectly. Black Fatigue is actually a book by Mary Frances Winters. It is a very, very good book, but it is about how things like racism, prejudice, and all of these different racial disparities in these hostile environments are affecting the actual health of Black men, women, and children, right? Down to affecting the actual development of Black children. How exhausting racism is to actually bear, and how it has the same effects of like stress, depression, and all those other things on the Black body. So I need y'all to put some respect on that term Black fatigue, because that's a term by an actual doctor that has to do with the stresses of dealing with the system that we in. And then also we have Birth Strike by Jenny Brown, right? The hidden fight over women's work. This is more of a feminist read. However, though, I don't know if you're familiar with the situation with the woman who is, I think she's clinically dead right now, and she's pregnant, and they're leaving that body on all them devices until the baby is born, right? So when we talk about things like abortion or reproductive rights, it's more dire consequences. This shit is straight out of a science fiction novel, right? The stuff that we're seeing happen like before our very eyes. And so this right here explains to you, it even critiques, you know what I'm saying, the feminist movements from first to second to third wave, fourth wave feminism, and the things that they failed to do in securing reproductive rights for women. And the thing is, we live in a capitalistic society right now. The government wants to replenish workers, and they want bodies by any means necessary. And so, yes, giving birth is still very much important. Family planning is still very much important to individuals, but understanding like what this really means, along with the disparities in the medical system and how unfortunately you're needed, and they might take them rights away. You know what I'm saying? Ain't gonna be family planning no more. You're not even gonna have a choice if you keep playing long enough. And then we got the ice pick. Oh, my bad. So we got the ice. We got the Ice Pick Surgeon by Sam Keene. The Ice Pick Surgeon is a murder, fraud, sabotage, piracy, and other dastardly deeds perpetrated in the name of science. This talks about everything from Tuskegee to pregnancy in medical practices when it comes to like enslaved women, even medical care when it came to slaves themselves. Like, and even in here, they talk about like experimentations on Black women, minority women, other stuff, or more so for podcast lovers. Because this guy Sam King actually has a podcast, and it's lit though. And this is a very interesting. It's some hard material, but he tried to put a more entertaining spin on it, just so you don't leave reading that shit depressed. Um, and then you were talking about the Immortal Life of Henrietta Lacks, right?
Yeah, and that's actually a movie, right? So you don't even got to read the book no more. They have turned it into a film, and you can actually go and watch it. But Henrietta Lacks was a Black woman who went to the hospital, and they ended up keeping her cells to do stem cell research.
Mm-hmm.
And she ended up passing away, but the research that they were able to do with her cells has actually founded like revolutionary research.
Yeah, like
And her
4,000 different
family,
medications, right? Or medical interventions. Some crazy over medical interventions and medicines too.
yeah, it was like some breakthrough
Mm-hmm.
technology, because she had some very special cells. But
Mm-hmm.
it also talks about how um, they can use you for research that actually ends up making them billions of dollars,
Mm-hmm.
that they profiteer from you, that you never are a beneficiary of.
For sure.
And in fact, might have actually led to the expediting of your death in order for them to
Yep.
be able to procure those things.
Yep.
So yeah, that is definitely one of those watches.
Mm-hmm.
That be prepared to have your emotions in check. I'm gonna just say that because it's gonna make you feel some ways.
Yeah, for sure.
And the other, I got one that I would add, that I don't have on my shelf, but I went to a workshop on. It's called Body and Soul, and it talks about the Black Panther Party and their fight against medical discrimination, and it's by Alondra Nelson.
Okay.
But basically, it goes through the health clinics, the programs they ran, right, the grassroots organizing response to being able to provide medical care. And a lot of people talk about the Black Panther Party and they talk about the free breakfast program, but I need y'all to know that they ran
Yeah.
over 66 active programs year round.
Yeah.
66,
Yeah.
right? And so even conceptually, if we start looking at all the things that they address, we would have a holistic approach to being able to meet needs alternatively, if we just keep that big picture in tandem. The other thing that I was thinking about when you brought up the book by Sam King
Mm-hmm.
was The Handmaid's Tale.
Yeah,
And
people don't understand how like that's real, and it's based on, unfortunately, the stories of women of color, enslaved women, and things like that. Like that's not.
a far-fetched idea.
It's not. It's not. It's literally based on on history, historical events, and things like that, or at the very least, rhetoric and ideologies that are propagated in real life. Um, and this is why, you know what I'm saying, not to get too controversial on here because we're not going to argue about abortion and things like this. I'm unfortunately going to always be pro-choice, and not necessarily because I want people to go out and get a bunch of abortions. However, I think having the state make legislation around physical bodies is a very slippery slope.
Dangerous.
A very slippery slope. The state should not tell you whether or not you have to give birth. That should not be a choice on the federal government or the state. That should be a personal choice for a family. And as long as you are saying that if that abortion should be banned, what you're saying is that you feel like it is the government's choice to decide when and if somebody can or because it's like soon as you say these people have to have birth, then you're opening the floodgates to decide who gets to actually do that and who can't. And we're gonna be right back to having the Mississippi appendectomies. If you don't know what that is, once upon a time, in the South, right? Even during Jim Crow, I want to say it was doing this shit all the way up into the 90s on the cool. Women would go in for benign procedures, even go to the dentist, and they would sterilize Black women just off rip. And it was so common. That's why they called it a Mississippi appendectomy, because obviously an appendectomy is a common surgery. They were literally removing the wombs of Black women just because. And so you have opened that door by officially saying that it's the state's business in general. And that's why I draw the line on it. Whether or not you personally would get one don't matter to me. I still feel like that's your choice as an individual in your family, right? So we have to be more alert. You know what I'm saying? Because just when you think some shit ain't up for grabs, the government will find a new way to say, "Hold my beer." Um,
Literally.
for real. So we
But I
got
think that's also what makes this advocacy piece so big too, because when we start talking about legislation around a body, right, around what can happen with our literal vessels, like
yep,
if it's going to affect one population, y'all, it is only a matter of time before that bleeds over into an effect for all of us, right?
for sure. And
And
it starts in the margins, and that's what people don't understand. I don't care what issue it is. I don't care if it's trans rights. I don't care if it whatever it is. It's going to hit the people in the margins first. And I think some Black people have gotten a little too comfortable with their position in America. We're still in the margins. We're still othered. So whether or not it might be an issue with just women who specifically are in a situation where they need to get an abortion or want to get an abortion, if it's something specifically that happens with trans folks, understand that your Black ass is next. I don't care what it is. They're like, sometimes Black people have already been a test run through Jim Crow slavery and all types of stuff, right? And see segregation, desegregation, all these medical advances we have. So all they're doing now is perfecting their methods using people that we might care a little bit less about, that don't have the same amount of numbers as Black people. And then guess what? They're still coming for us. Period. We're still the minority here. Yeah, yeah. You gotta
that's it.
tighten up, tighten up,
That's it.
tighten up, because you never know when it's gonna be you. You never know when it's gonna be you. People thought that it wasn't gonna happen when it came to the deportation and mass deportations, and then it's like, oh, now DEI gone. I watch people get letters and get fired from their jobs. When I was like, hey, I get that they immigrants or migrant workers, and some of y'all don't even know the difference between immigrants and migrants. That's a whole nother conversation, and I'm not gonna get frustrated tonight, but you watched that shit and you laughed at it, and then some of your friends lost their jobs. Some of your friends who are family members who are business owners lost government contracts. We saw these things happen in mass. Now colleges are losing funding. Now programs and initiatives designed for Black people are losing funding because we're always going to be next. If we're not first, we're definitely going to be next in line. And so we have to do things with that in mind. It's too easy to just kind of, what they say, a rising tide raises all boats.
Mm,
So yeah, rising tide raises all boats. So that means that any advancements made for marginalized people, we still get to reap the benefits of. Keep it is too easy to be a good person, fam. Too easy to be a good person. So we definitely gotta
that's it.
tighten up. But we also gotta know our history, right? And I definitely believe in, look, I love the babies. I'm about the future, right? These babies are our future. And I do think, even in this current system, um, having a family and giving birth, right, and birthing the next generation is a revolutionary act, and it's important. Um, so I don't want to diminish that. You know what I'm saying? I just think we need to be a little bit smarter, and we gotta tighten up because it's real out here. It's real out here.
Absolutely. And I would agree that it's a revolutionary act. I think it's also a revolutionary act to protect the body, right?
Period.
And I say protect the body even from the institutions that are supposed to serve it, right? And
Yep.
so, yeah, I think that's a very real thing. Because a lot of people, when they think about women's choice, they think primarily about not wanting women to have abortions, right?
Right.
But I think
Because they
this
want to
other
punish women for bad decisions. That's mostly what that shit is about. If we keeping it a buck, because if it's just merely a religious thing or whatever the case may be, then yeah, that's between you and your God, right? But when you feel like that decision should be forced on other people, just say you want women to be stuck and be punished for doing what they did. That's all it is.
that's
Nobody's
it.
using abortions as a form of birth control. Like, that's, first of all, they cost too much. Like, let's keep it a buck. But
Yeah, but forced labor is the other part of that I was thinking about, right?
mhm.
I'm thinking about these laws that are changing to where if you transport a woman across state lines so that she can have abortion, it is technically a form of considered trafficking.
Yep, it's human
Um,
trafficking now.
and so, and all of these again, these things that put parameters around what can happen with our bodies and
Mm-hmm.
legislation that says that the state can take these responsive actions to your
Right.
choices.
To your personal choices for you and your
To your
family, though.
personal choice. Not that you committed a crime,
Right.
just because
Right.
you chose something, right, other than what they would agree with or would have. And so
Exactly.
just be mindful of that, y'all. Freedom of choice go a long way.
Mm-hmm.
And there is power in being able to choose. And when you relinquish that power, it has consequences for us all.
Yeah.
So hold the line,
Mm,
y'all.
definitely.
So
So let's do this toast. What we toasting to?
we toasting to all the black wombs. Every black womb, may you birth in power with people who see you, who believe you, that are gonna protect you and show up for you and support your needs.
For sure. Cheers to that.
I'm on it. Listen. Oh, that is delightful.
What you
So
drinking
yeah.
over there?
So I went to this restaurant today called Afro Bites, and they have a tropical tea. And I just want to say it mixes well. Mixes well with dark.
Yeah, with your adult beverages.
Yeah, but it's amazing.
Yeah.
Y'all support your people, shop
Yeah.
local,
Definitely.
figure out who's in your community, learn their names. You know what I'm saying? That's how we really start changing things. Because then you actually care about people,
For sure.
right? These are not just randoms, and you know what I'm saying, folk who are out here. These are
Yeah.
folk who eye to eye, chest to chest. I know them. They
Yeah.
know me. Um, yeah, and that's how we draw the circle out and find our tribe.
Mm-hmm.
So if on tonight you have heard something that educated you or made you feel inclined to go and get involved or learn some more,
Mm-hmm.
even if it's about somebody's story, right? Follow, subscribe, tell a friend, tell them to
Yeah.
bring it in, listen to it.
Put us in
Okay.
the group chat. You already know. Go and share this in the group chat. And then next week on Wine and Spirits, we're moving from the delivery room to the divine. We're sanctified or shady. We unpacking
Ooh.
a performance of holiness because some of y'all are lighting sage while throwing shade and calling it alignment.
Ooh.
We'll see you then. No, but for real, y'all have a good one. Meet me in the future. Do something today to benefit your future self.
Yeah. Get what you need always and in all ways. And we'll see y'all next week.
Yeah.